The steel bars of the jail cell gleamed in the harsh morning light, as Sophia Watson pressed her face between them, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might shatter her ribs. Her younger sister Lucy sat huddled on the narrow cot inside, tear tracks staining her pale cheeks, accused of a theft she did not commit. Green River, Wyoming had been their home for only 3 months, but already the small frontier town threatened to destroy everything they had worked so hard to build after their parents died in a cholera outbreak back in Kansas. It was September 1878, and the autumn air carried the promise of an early winter along with whispers of scandal that could ruin an innocent girl's life forever. "I did not take that brooch," Lucy whispered through the bars, her voice hoarse from crying. "I swear on Mama's grave, I never touched it." Sophia reached through and grasped her sister's trembling hands. "I know you did not. I will prove it, Lucy. I promise you that." She turned to glare at Sheriff Denton, who stood by his desk shuffling papers with the kind of lazy indifference that made her blood boil. "My sister has worked at the boarding house for 2 months without a single complaint. Mrs. Patterson only accused her after her own nephew visited from back east. Do you not find that suspicious?" The sheriff barely looked up. "Mrs. Patterson is a respected member of this community. Your sister is just a maid. Who do you think folks are going to believe? Someone who tells the truth," Sophia shot back, her voice rising despite her attempt to stay calm. "That brooch could be anywhere. Did you even search the nephew's room before he left on yesterday's stage?" "Now you listen here, girl." Sheriff Denton finally stood, his considerable bulk making the floorboards creak. "I do not take kindly to being told how to do my job. Your sister was the last one in that room before the brooch went missing. Mrs. Patterson found her there alone. That is evidence enough for me." "That is not evidence. That is convenience." Sophia's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You have done nothing but take that woman's word and throw my sister in a cell. What kind of lawman are you?" The door to the sheriff's office swung open, and a tall figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the morning sun. Sophia turned, ready to unleash her frustration on whoever dared interrupt, but the words died in her throat as the man removed his hat and she got her first clear look at him. He was tall, probably in his mid-20s, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that fell just past his collar. His eyes were a startling shade of gray-blue, like storm clouds over the distant mountains, and they surveyed the scene with keen intelligence. He wore the practical clothes of a working cowhand, dusty from the trail, but there was something about the way he carried himself that suggested he was more than just another drifter passing through. "Sheriff," the man said, his voice deep and measured. "I heard you have someone locked up for stealing from the boarding house." "That is right, Wade. The Watson girl. What business is it of yours?" The sheriff's tone suggested familiarity but not exactly friendship. The man, Wade, stepped further into the office, and Sophia noticed the way he moved with a kind of easy grace that spoke of years in the saddle. "It might be my business because I was at the boarding house 2 nights ago. I saw something that might be relevant to your investigation." Sophia's heart leaped. "You were there. Did you see what happened?" Wade's eyes met hers, and she felt an unexpected jolt run through her. There was kindness in that gaze and something else she could not quite name. "Wade Crawford, madam, and you are Sophia Watson." "That is my sister Lucy in there." She pointed toward the cell where Lucy had risen from the cot and was now standing at the bars, hope dawning on her young face. "Miss Watson." Wade nodded to her, then to Lucy. "Sheriff, I need to tell you what I saw." Sheriff Denton sighed heavily. "Go on then, but make it quick. I have things to do." Wade set his hat on the desk and crossed his arms. "I had a room at the boarding house for 2 nights while conducting business in town. On the evening before last, I was coming up the back stairs and I saw Mrs. Patterson's nephew, the one who has been visiting. He was in the hallway outside his room, and I saw him slip something small and shiny into his coat pocket. He looked nervous, kept checking over his shoulder. When he saw me, he jumped like a startled rabbit and hurried into his room. "That does not prove anything," Sheriff Denton said, but his tone had lost some of its certainty. "Maybe not by itself," Wade agreed. "But I also heard him arguing with his aunt earlier that day. I was in the dining room and they were in the parlor. The door was not quite closed. He was asking her for money, said he had debts that needed paying. She refused, said she had already given him enough." Sophia felt as though she could breathe properly for the first time since Lucy's arrest. "You see, he took the brooch himself, probably to sell it. He knew his aunt would not give him more money, so he stole from her and let Lucy take the blame." The sheriff scratched his jaw, looking uncomfortable. "That is quite an accusation to make against Mrs. Patterson's kin." "It is not an accusation, it is the truth," Wade said firmly. "I am willing to swear to what I saw and heard. The nephew left on yesterday's stage heading east, did he not? Seems convenient timing." Sophia turned to the sheriff with renewed determination. "You have to let Lucy go. You have a witness now who places the nephew acting suspiciously with something small and shiny. My sister has no reason to steal. We have jobs. We have been saving our money. We have no debts, no vices. Lucy is 19 years old and has never been in trouble a day in her life." "Please, Sheriff," Lucy called from the cell, her voice stronger now. "I've told you the truth from the start. I went into that room to change the linens like I do every day. I never saw any brooch. I never took anything that was not mine." Sheriff Denton looked between the three of them, clearly torn between his desire to avoid conflict with Mrs. Patterson and the mounting evidence that he might have arrested the wrong person. "Wade, you are certain about what you saw, as certain as I am standing here." "I have no reason to lie, Sheriff. I do not know these ladies. I am just telling you what I witnessed." The sheriff let out a long breath. "All right. I suppose I cannot hold the girl if there is doubt about her guilt, but Mrs. Patterson is going to pitch a fit." "Then let her," Sophia said sharply. "My sister's freedom and reputation are worth more than that woman's pride." Sheriff Denton retrieved his keys and unlocked the cell door. Lucy rushed out and into Sophia's arms, both sisters holding each other tightly. Sophia felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them back. There would be time for crying later in private. Right now she needed to stay strong. "Thank you," she whispered against Lucy's hair, then pulled back to look at Wade Crawford. "Thank you so much. If you had not come forward, they might have convicted her on nothing more than Mrs. Patterson's word." Wade picked up his hat and held it in his hands, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. "I could not stand by and let an innocent person suffer when I knew something that might help. That would not be right." "Most people do not care about what is right," Sophia said, studying him with new appreciation. "They care about what is easy or profitable." "I am not most people," Wade replied simply. Lucy wiped her eyes and stepped forward. "Mr. Crawford, I do not know how to repay you for your kindness." "No repayment necessary, miss. Just glad I could help set things straight." He turned to the sheriff. "You planning to investigate this further? Try to recover the brooch?" Sheriff Denton looked distinctly uncomfortable. "I suppose I will have to send a telegram to the next town up the line, see if they can stop the nephew and search him." "You do that," Sophia said coolly. "And when you find that brooch in his possession, I expect a public apology to my sister." The sheriff grunted but did not argue. Sophia took that as a small victory. She linked her arm through Lucy's and started toward the door, then paused and looked back at Wade. "Mr. Crawford, Might I buy you breakfast as a token of our gratitude? It is the least I can do." Wade met her eyes again, and once more she felt that strange flutter in her chest. "I would not say no to a good meal, Miss Watson. Trail rations get tiresome after a while." They left the sheriff's office together, stepping out into the bright morning sunshine of Green River's Main Street. The town was coming alive around them, merchants opening their shops, horses and wagons moving along the dusty road, the sound of a hammer ringing from the blacksmith's forge down the way. Sophia had grown to love this town in the short time they had been here, despite its imperfections. It was rougher than the places they had known in Kansas, but it had a vitality and promise that appealed to her adventurous spirit. The restaurant, a modest establishment called the Golden Skillet, was only 2 buildings down from the jail. Sophia led the way inside, still holding onto Lucy's arm as if afraid her sister might disappear if she let go. They settled into a corner table, and a tired-looking waitress came to take their order. 3 breakfast plates, Sophia said. "With coffee, please." When the waitress left, an awkward silence fell over the table. Lucy seemed exhausted, dark circles under her eyes from a sleepless night in that cold cell. Sophia felt her own fatigue pulling at her, but her mind was too active to rest. She kept replaying the morning's events, marveling at the timing that had brought Wade Crawford to the sheriff's office at exactly the right moment. "You must think we are quite the pair of unfortunate souls," Sophia said to Wade, attempting a smile. "New to town and already mixed up in scandal." Wade leaned back in his chair, relaxed despite the tension of the past hour. "I think you are a woman defending her family, which is about the most natural thing in the world. Nothing shameful in that." "Tell that to the good people of Green River," Lucy said bitterly. "By noon, everyone will know I was arrested. It will not matter that I was innocent. People will always wonder." "Then we prove them wrong by how we live," Sophia said firmly, squeezing her sister's hand. "We hold our heads high and we do our work well. Eventually, the truth becomes clear to anyone with eyes to see." Wade nodded approvingly. "That is good thinking. Running or hiding would only make you look guilty. Face it head-on and folks will respect you for it." The coffee arrived, strong and hot, and Sophia wrapped her hands around the warm cup, drawing comfort from it. "Are you from around here, Mr. Crawford?" "Just Wade, please. And no, I am from Colorado originally. My family has a ranch near Denver, but I have been working various cattle drives and ranches throughout Wyoming and Montana for the past few years, seeing the country, learning the business from different operations. What brings you to Green River?" Lucy asked, some of her natural curiosity returning now that the immediate crisis had passed. "I have been hired on at the Double C Ranch, about 10 miles north of here. Start work next week. Came into town to get supplies and arrange some business. I was staying at the boarding house because it is cleaner than the saloon rooms and quieter too." Sophia sipped her coffee, studying Wade over the rim of her cup. He had an honest face, she decided. Strong features with smile lines around his eyes that suggested he laughed often, though there was a seriousness to him as well. He looked like a man who thought before he spoke, who considered his actions carefully. In her 22 years, she had met very few men who impressed her. Most were either too rough, too crude, or too interested in what they could get from a woman rather than what they could give. Wade Crawford seemed different, though she cautioned herself not to jump to conclusions based on one act of decency. Their food arrived, heaping plates of eggs, bacon, fried potatoes, and thick slices of bread with butter and jam. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the simple pleasure of a good meal easing some of the morning's strain. "What about you ladies?" Wade asked between bites. "What brought you to Wyoming?" Sophia set down her fork and took a breath. The story never got easier to tell. Our parents died last year. Cholera epidemics swept through our town in Kansas. Lucy and I were both sick too, but we survived. When we recovered, we found ourselves orphaned with very little money and no close family to take us in. We had distant cousins who offered us a place to stay, but the conditions they proposed were unacceptable. They wanted to split us up, Lucy added quietly. Said they could only afford to take one of us. So we decided to make our own way, Sophia continued. We sold what we could, used the money to travel west. We had heard that Wyoming offered opportunities for people willing to work hard. We found jobs here in Green River. I work as a seamstress for Mrs. Hartley's dress shop, and Lucy had been working at the boarding house until this morning. Wade's expression was sympathetic but not pitying, which Sophia appreciated. That takes courage, striking out on your own like that. Most women would have accepted whatever family offered, even if it meant separation. We are not most women, Sophia said, echoing his earlier words. Lucy is all the family I have left. I would rather scrub floors for the rest of my life than be parted from her. I understand that. Family is everything. Wade's voice held a note of something wistful, and Sophia wondered about his own story, but she did not press. They had only just met, after all. They finished their meal, and Sophia insisted on paying despite Wade's protests. You saved my sister from a terrible injustice. The least I can do is buy you breakfast. Outside the restaurant, they stood on the wooden boardwalk, momentarily uncertain how to part ways. Lucy looked between her sister and Wade with barely concealed interest, and Sophia shot her a warning glance. The last thing she needed was her romantic-minded sister getting ideas. I should get back to the dress shop, Sophia said. I missed the opening this morning because of all this, and Mrs. Hartley will be wondering what happened. And I need to go explain things at the boarding house, Lucy said with a sigh. If they will even take me back after this. Wade settled his hat on his head. If they give you trouble, you tell them to come talk to me. I will make sure they understand what really happened. Sophia felt a rush of gratitude mixed with something warmer. You have already done so much for us. It was the right thing to do, Wade said simply. He tipped his hat to them both. Ladies, it has been a pleasure meeting you despite the circumstances. I hope the rest of your day goes more smoothly. He started to walk away, and Sophia felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. She told herself she was being foolish. The man had done them a good turn, nothing more. There was no reason to think she would ever see him again. But then Wade paused and looked back. Miss Watson, Sophia, I was wondering if perhaps you might like to have dinner with me sometime. I do not know many people in Green River yet, and I would enjoy the company. Sophia's heart did a little skip. Lucy was practically bouncing on her toes beside her. I would like that, Sophia heard herself say, her voice calmer than she felt. When did you have in mind? How about tomorrow evening? I could meet you at your place, or we could meet at the restaurant if you prefer. The restaurant would be fine. 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock it is. Wade smiled, and it transformed his whole face, making him look younger and more carefree. I look forward to it. He walked away then, his long stride carrying him down the street toward the general store. Sophia watched him go, aware that her sister was staring at her with undisguised glee. Do not say a word, Sophia warned. I was not going to say anything, Lucy protested, though her grin said otherwise. I just think it is wonderful that such a handsome, kind man wants to have dinner with you. It is just dinner, Lucy. Do not make it into something it is not. He could have just told the sheriff what he knew and left, but he waited. He made sure you knew who he was, and then he asked you to dinner. That is not nothing, Sophie. Sophia had to admit her sister had a point, but she was not ready to indulge in romantic fantasies. She had been disappointed before, and besides, they had more practical concerns. Let us focus on getting your job back first. Then we can worry about dinner dates. They walked together toward the boarding house, a large 3-story building at the end of Main Street. Mrs. Patterson ran it with an iron fist, keeping everything spotlessly clean and demanding the same from her staff. Sophia had never particularly liked the woman, finding her cold and judgmental, but the job had been good for Lucy, providing steady income and even room and board if needed. Mrs. Patterson was in the front parlor when they entered, arranging flowers in a vase. She looked up at their entrance, her expression hardening when she saw Lucy. "You have some nerve showing your face here," she said icily. Sophia stepped forward, positioning herself slightly in front of her sister. "Mrs. Patterson, you owe Lucy an apology. The sheriff released her because there is a witness who saw your nephew acting suspiciously with something small and shiny the night before the brooch went missing. The same nephew who was arguing with you about money, who left town very suddenly yesterday." Mrs. Patterson's face went pale, then flushed red. "That is absurd. My nephew would never steal from me." "Then you will not mind when the sheriff catches up with him and searches his belongings," Sophia said coolly. "But until you have proof that Lucy took anything, you have slandered an innocent girl and nearly ruined her life. You made an accusation without evidence, Mrs. Patterson. That says more about you than it does about my sister." The older woman sputtered, clearly unused to being spoken to so directly. "I will not be addressed in such a manner in my own establishment." "Then we will not trouble you further," Sophia replied. "Lucy will collect her things and we will be on our way. I am sure there are other positions in town for a hard worker with a good reputation." "Sophie," Lucy whispered, tugging at her sleeve. "I need this job." "Not this badly," Sophia said firmly, but before she could say more, Mrs. Patterson held up a hand. "Wait." The word seemed to cost her, but she forced it out. "I may have been hasty in my conclusions. If there is truly evidence that suggests my nephew might be involved, then I suppose it is possible I was mistaken about your sister." It was not quite an apology, but Sophia could see it was the best they were going to get. She looked at Lucy, letting her sister make the decision. Lucy straightened her shoulders and looked Mrs. Patterson in the eye. "I did not take your brooch. I have never taken anything that was not mine. I have worked hard for you for 2 months, and I was going to continue working hard, but I will not stay where I am not trusted or respected." Mrs. Patterson's expression wavered between pride and pragmatism. Good help was hard to find on the frontier, and Lucy was an excellent worker. "Very well. If the sheriff determines that my nephew was responsible, I will reinstate you with a raise in wages. I will also make sure that people know you were falsely accused. That is the best I can offer." Lucy glanced at Sophia, who gave a tiny nod. "All right. But I want the apology to be public, not just whispered in corners." "Agreed." Mrs. Patterson turned back to her flowers, the matter apparently settled in her mind. The sisters left the boarding house together, and once they were out of earshot, Lucy let out a shaky laugh. "I cannot believe you stood up to her like that. I thought she was going to throw us both out bodily." "She needs you more than you need her," Sophia said. "Once I realized that, the rest was easy. You are a good worker, Lucy. Any establishment would be lucky to have you." "I learned from the best," Lucy said, linking her arm through Sophia's. "You have always fought for us for what we need. I do not know what I would do without you." "You will never have to find out," Sophia promised. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment, then Lucy spoke again. "You really like him, do not you, Wade Crawford?" Sophia wanted to deny it, but she had never been good at lying to her sister. I do not know him well enough to say that, but there is something about him. He could have stayed silent. He did not owe us anything. But he chose to help, even though it might have caused him trouble. That is the mark of a good man, Lucy said wisely, when he chooses to do right even when it is difficult. Since when did you become such a philosopher? Since I spent a night in a jail cell with nothing to do but think. Lucy's smile faded. I was so scared, Sophie. I kept thinking about what would happen if they convicted me. We have heard the stories about women sent to prison. I do not think I would have survived that. Sophia stopped walking and pulled her sister into a tight embrace right there on the street, not caring who saw. I would never have let that happen. I would have fought until my last breath to prove your innocence. I know. I always know you will protect me. But sometimes I wish I could be strong like you. You are strong, Lucy. You are just strong in different ways. Sophia pulled back and smiled at her sister. Now come on. I really do need to get to the dress shop and you should rest. You look exhausted. They parted ways, Lucy heading to the small room they rented above the general store, and Sophia continuing on to Mrs. Hartley's establishment. The dress shop was a tidy space filled with bolts of fabric, ribbons, lace, and the half-finished projects that kept Sophia busy from morning to evening. Mrs. Hartley was a widow in her 50s, kind-hearted and fair, and she looked up with concern when Sophia entered. "My dear," I heard about Lucy. "Is everything all right?" Sophia untied her bonnet and hung it on the peg by the door. "It is now. She has been released." There was a witness who placed suspicion on someone else. Thank goodness. Mrs. Hartley set down the dress she had been hemming. I never believed for a moment that Lucy took that brooch. She is too honest for such behavior, but you know how people can be, always ready to believe the worst. Unfortunately, I do know. Sophia took her seat at her workstation and examined the pile of projects waiting for her attention. What needs doing first? They settled into work, the familiar rhythm of needle and thread soothing Sophia's frayed nerves. Mrs. Hartley chatted about various town gossip, filling Sophia in on who was courting whom, which families were moving away, and which businesses were struggling or thriving. It was the kind of small talk that Sophia usually only half listened to, but today she found herself paying attention when Mrs. Hartley mentioned the Double C Ranch. "That is where Wade Crawford is going to work," Sophia said before she could stop herself. Mrs. Hartley's eyebrows rose with interest. "Wade Crawford? Is he the one who spoke up for Lucy?" He was. He witnessed something that cast doubt on the accusation against her. How fortunate. Mrs. Hartley's tone was neutral, but her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "And you have met this Mr. Crawford?" Briefly. "He seems like a decent man." Sophia kept her eyes on her stitching, not wanting to reveal too much. The Double C is one of the better ranches in the area. Good owners, fair wages, and they treat their hands well. A man working there has steady prospects. Mrs. Hartley's voice was casual, but Sophia knew exactly what she was implying. "Mrs. Hartley, I met the man for all of an hour this morning. I am not planning a wedding." "Of course not, dear. But there is nothing wrong with noticing a good prospect when one presents itself. Eligible men are not exactly plentiful in Green River, especially ones with steady work and good character." Sophia had to laugh. "You sound like Lucy. She is already convinced this is a romance for the ages." "Young love often starts in unexpected places," Mrs. Hartley said wisely. "My Harold proposed to me 3 days after we met. We were married for 32 years before the fever took him. Sometimes you just know when something is right." The rest of the day passed in steady work. Sophia completed 2 dress alterations and made good progress on a new dress for the banker's daughter. By the time 6 o'clock came around, Her fingers ached and her eyes were tired from the close work, but she felt satisfied with what she had accomplished. She walked home through the cooling evening air, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Their room above the general store was small but clean, with 2 narrow beds, a table and chairs, a small stove, and hooks on the wall for their clothes. Lucy was there when Sophia arrived, already preparing a simple dinner of bread, cheese, and the last of some dried apples. "How was work?" Lucy asked. "Productive. Mrs. Hartley sends her regards and says she never doubted your innocence." "That is kind of her." Lucy set out plates and they sat down to eat. "I slept for most of the afternoon. I did not realize how exhausted I was until I lay down. You needed it. What will you do tomorrow? Wait to hear from the sheriff, I suppose. See if they catch up with Mrs. Patterson's nephew." Lucy paused. "And help you get ready for your dinner with Wade Crawford." "It is just dinner," Sophia protested, but she could not help smiling. They spent the evening in quiet companionship, talking about everything and nothing, enjoying the peace after the morning's chaos. When they finally went to bed, Sophia lay awake for a long time, watching the moonlight through the window and thinking about gray-blue eyes and a deep, steady voice saying, "I am not most people." The next day dawned clear and bright, and Sophia found herself more nervous than she wanted to admit. She told herself repeatedly that it was just a friendly dinner, nothing more, but her fluttering stomach did not seem to be listening to reason. She wore her best dress, a dark blue calico that brought out her eyes, and let Lucy help arrange her hair in a style that was elegant but not too fancy. "You look beautiful," Lucy declared, stepping back to admire her work. "I look the same as I always do," Sophia said, but she had to admit she was pleased with her reflection in their small mirror. "Nonsense. You look like a woman going to meet someone special." At 7:15, Sophia left their room and walked to the Golden Skillet, her heart beating faster with each step. She arrived to find Wade already waiting outside, cleaned up and wearing clothes that, while still practical, were clearly his best. His face lit up when he saw her and he quickly removed his hat. "Miss Watson, you look lovely." "Thank you. You clean up rather well yourself, Mr. Crawford." "Wade, please. Mr. Crawford makes me feel like you are addressing my father." They went inside and found a table by the window. The restaurant was busy but not crowded, filled with the low hum of conversation and the clatter of dishes. The same tired waitress from yesterday took their order, this time with a knowing smile that made Sophia blush. "How is your sister doing?" Wade asked once they were alone. "Much better, thank you. She slept most of yesterday and seems more like herself today. Mrs. Patterson has agreed to reinstate her with a raise once the sheriff confirms what really happened with the brooch." "That is good news. Have you heard anything from the sheriff?" "Not yet, but I expect we will soon. The stage was not that far ahead. If he sent a telegram yesterday, they should have been able to stop it at the next town." Their food arrived, roast beef with potatoes and carrots, and they ate in comfortable silence for a few moments. Sophia studied Wade when she thought he was not looking, noticing little details like the small scar above his right eyebrow and the calluses on his hands that spoke of hard physical work. "Tell me about your family," Sophia said. "You mentioned a ranch in Colorado." Wade set down his fork and leaned back. "My parents own a cattle ranch near Denver. It is a good operation, successful. I have 2 older brothers who work there with my father. I am the youngest, and I suppose I always felt like I needed to prove myself somewhere other than in their shadow. So I left home when I was 20 and have been working my way around Wyoming and Montana, learning from different ranches and different men." "Do you miss them, your family?" "Sometimes, but we write letters and I visit when I can. They understand that I needed to make my own way." "I think I understand that," Sophia said softly. "Sometimes the people who love us most can be the ones we need to get away from, not because we do not love them back, but because we need to discover who we are on our own." Wade nodded, his eyes meeting hers with understanding. "Exactly. What about you? What were you like before life forced you to become so strong?" The question caught her off guard. Most people only saw the strong, determined woman she had become. They did not think to ask who she had been before. "I wanted to be a teacher," she admitted. "I loved books, loved learning. I thought I would go to a normal school and then teach in a little schoolhouse somewhere. I imagined myself surrounded by children, helping them discover the world through words and numbers." "What stopped you?" "Life. Reality. My parents got sick and I had to nurse them. Then they died, and suddenly I was responsible for Lucy. Teaching requires training I cannot afford and time I do not have. So I became a seamstress instead, which is practical and pays the bills." "You regret it?" Sophia considered the question carefully. "I regret that I did not get to choose, but I do not regret the life I have. Lucy and I are together, we are making our way, and we are doing it on our own terms. That has value." "It does," Wade agreed. "More than you might realize. Most people just do what is expected of them. You chose a harder path because it was right for you." They talked through dinner and dessert, the conversation flowing easily from one topic to another. Sophia found herself laughing more than she had in months, charmed by Wade's dry sense of humor and his thoughtful observations about life on the frontier. He asked good questions and actually listened to her answers, something she found refreshingly rare in men. When they finally left the restaurant, the sun had set and stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Wade offered to walk her home, and Sophia accepted, though the walk was short. She found herself wishing it were longer. They paused outside the general store, the windows dark now that the shop had closed for the night. Sophia turned to face Wade, suddenly feeling shy. "Thank you for dinner. I had a wonderful time." "So did I. I hope we can do it again soon." "I would like that." Wade reached out and gently took her hand. The touch sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cooling night air. "Sophia, I know we have only just met, but I feel like I have known you much longer. Is that strange?" "No," she whispered. "I feel it too." He lifted her hand and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. "Good night, then. Sleep well." "Good night, Wade." She watched him walk away into the darkness, his figure eventually disappearing around the corner. Only then did she allow herself to touch her hand where his lips had been, marveling at the warm feeling spreading through her chest. Lucy was right. This was something special. She could feel it. Lucy was still awake when Sophia climbed the stairs to their room, sitting by the window with a shawl around her shoulders. She turned when the door opened, her face eager with curiosity. "Tell me everything," she demanded. Sophia laughed and began to recount the evening, leaving out only the most private moments, the little looks and touches that felt too precious to share even with her beloved sister. Lucy listened with rapt attention, sighing dramatically at the romantic parts. "He is courting you properly," Lucy declared when Sophia finished. "That is good. It means he is serious. Lucy, we have had one dinner. Let us not marry me off just yet." But as Sophia lay in bed that night, she could not help imagining what a future with Wade Crawford might look like. It was foolish and premature, but her heart had already begun to hope. The next few weeks passed in a pleasant rhythm. Wade called on Sophia 3 more times, taking her to dinner, to a church social, and on a lovely Sunday afternoon for a ride in a borrowed buggy out to see the countryside around Green River. Each time they were together, Sophia felt her feelings growing stronger and deeper. Wade was everything she had not dared to hope for in a man. kind, hardworking, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in who she was as a person, not just as a potential wife to keep his house and bear his children. The situation with the brooch had resolved as well. Sheriff Denton received word that Mrs. Patterson's nephew had indeed been caught with the stolen jewelry. He confessed to taking it to pay gambling debts, and Mrs. Patterson had been forced to make a public apology to Lucy in the town square. It had been satisfying to watch the proud woman humble herself, though Sophia took no pleasure in her embarrassment, only in her sister's vindication. Lucy had returned to work at the boarding house with her promised raise, and Mrs. Patterson, to her credit, had treated her with more respect afterward. The incident seemed to have taught the older woman a lesson about jumping to conclusions. It was late October when Wade asked Sophia to take a walk with him after church one Sunday. The autumn air was crisp, leaves turning gold and red on the few trees that lined Green River's streets. They walked to the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to open prairie and the mountains rose in the distance, already topped with snow. "Winter comes early here," Wade observed, his breath visible in the cold air. "Earlier than Kansas, that is for certain. Lucy and I need to make sure we have enough firewood laid by. I could help with that. The ranch keeps me busy, but I have Sundays off. You do not have to do that." Wade stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. "Sophia, I want to do things for you. I want to be part of your life, yours and Lucy's." Her heart began to race. "Wade, what are you saying?" He took both her hands in his, and she could feel the warmth of his touch through their gloves. "I am saying that I have fallen in love with you. I know it has only been a few weeks, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You are smart, brave, loyal, and beautiful. You make me laugh and make me think. When I am with you, I feel like I have found something I did not even know I was looking for." Tears sprang to Sophia's eyes, but they were happy tears. "I have fallen in love with you too. I tried to be practical and sensible, but my heart had other ideas." Wade cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently brushing away her tears. "Then marry me, Sophia Watson. Let me be your family, yours and Lucy's. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to make you happy." "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I will marry you." He kissed her then, a soft, sweet kiss that promised a lifetime of more to come. Sophia felt as though she were floating, her heart so full she thought it might burst. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. "I do not have a ring yet," Wade said apologetically, "but I will get you one, the finest I can afford. I do not need a ring, I just need you." But even as she said it, an idea occurred to her. "Wait, I have something." She reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a delicate gold band that had belonged to her mother. She had carried it with her always, unable to bear parting with it. "This was my mother's wedding ring. My father gave it to me before he died, said I should have it for when I found the right man. Would you accept it as a token? We could have it sized to fit you if needed." Wade took the ring carefully, his expression reverent. "Are you sure? This is your mother's ring. And now it will become ours. I cannot think of a better way to honor her memory than to use it to start our new family." He slipped the ring onto his smallest finger, where it fit snugly. "I will wear it with pride and take care of it always." They walked back to town hand in hand, already making plans. They would marry as soon as possible, perhaps in 3 weeks' time to allow for preparations. Lucy would live with them, of course, until she was ready to make her own way. Wade would speak to his boss at the Double C Ranch about finding housing for a married man, and Sophia would continue her work at the dress shop for as long as Mrs. Hartley needed her. Lucy was overjoyed when they told her the news. She hugged them both fiercely, crying happy tears. "I knew it," she kept saying. I knew from the moment I saw you together that this was meant to be. The next 3 weeks flew by in a flurry of activity. Sophia sewed her own wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown of cream-colored wool that would be practical for the coming winter. Lucy helped with the preparations, arranging for flowers and food for a small celebration after the ceremony. Wade secured a small house on the Double C Ranch property, a 2-bedroom cabin that would be perfect for their new family. Word spread through Green River about the engagement, and to Sophia's surprise, the community embraced the news. Mrs. Hartley threw a small party at the dress shop for Sophia and the other women of the town. Even Mrs. Patterson attended and brought a set of fine linens as a wedding gift, her way of making further amends for the false accusation against Lucy. Wade's family could not make the journey from Colorado on such short notice, but they sent a warm letter of congratulations and a generous check as a wedding present. Wade read portions of the letter aloud to Sophia, and she could hear the love and pride in his parents' words. They were already calling her daughter and saying how eager they were to meet her. The wedding took place on a cold, bright Saturday in November 1878. The small church was decorated with pine branches and the last of the autumn flowers. Sophia walked down the aisle on Lucy's arm, her sister serving as both family and witness. Wade stood at the altar looking handsome in his best suit, his face radiating happiness. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. The preacher spoke about love and commitment, about building a life together through good times and bad. When it came time for vows, Wade spoke as clearly and firmly, his eyes never leaving Sophia's face. I, Wade Crawford, take you, Sophia Watson, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, protect you, and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to be a good husband to you and a good brother to Lucy. I promise to build a home where love and laughter live, where you are always safe and valued. This I swear before God and these witnesses. Sophia's voice trembled slightly as she spoke her own vows. I, Sophia Watson, take you, Wade Crawford, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you with all my heart, to stand by your side through whatever comes, to be your partner in building a life together. I promise to honor you, respect you, and choose you every day. This I swear before God and these witnesses. They exchanged rings, Wade placing a simple gold band on Sophia's finger that he had purchased with his savings. Then the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Wade kissed her to the applause and cheers of the assembled guests. The celebration afterward was held at the restaurant, with food and music and dancing. Sophia found herself passed from one well-wisher to another, accepting congratulations and good wishes. Lucy was radiant, clearly delighted to see her sister so happy. Even Sheriff Denton attended, looking slightly uncomfortable in his Sunday clothes but sincere in his congratulations. As the afternoon turned to evening, Wade and Sophia finally managed to slip away. They rode in a wagon loaded with their belongings out to the Double C Ranch, Lucy coming with them as planned. The ranch was beautiful, sprawling across a wide valley with the mountains as a backdrop. The main ranch house was impressive, a large 2-story building with lights glowing warmly in the windows. Their cabin sat a short distance away, nestled among some cottonwood trees. Wade carried Sophia over the threshold while Lucy laughed and clapped. The cabin was small but well built, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area, and 2 bedrooms off to the side. Someone, probably the ranch owner's wife, had left a fire burning in the stove and a pot of stew warming for their dinner. There were fresh linens on the beds and even a jar of wildflowers on the table despite the season. "Welcome home, Mrs. Crawford," Wade said, setting Sophia down gently. She looked around at the simple space, then at her sister's happy face, and finally at her husband's loving eyes. "It is perfect." They shared a simple meal together, the three of them, talking and laughing as if they had been a family for years rather than hours. Eventually, Lucy excused herself to her room, tactfully giving the newlyweds privacy. Wade took Sophia's hand and led her to their bedroom, suddenly looking nervous. "I know this is all happening fast. If you need time, if you want to wait for anything, you just say so. There is no pressure, Sophia." She reached up and touched his face, loving him even more for his consideration. "I do not want to wait. You are my husband now, and I want to be your wife in every way." He kissed her then, deeper than before, and Sophia felt herself melting into him. They undressed each other slowly, tenderly, discovering each other with gentle hands and whispered words. Wade was patient and loving, making sure Sophia felt safe and cherished. When they finally came together, it was with a sense of rightness that transcended the physical, a joining of not just bodies but hearts and souls. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the narrow bed, Sophia's head resting on Wade's chest as he stroked her hair. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. "Better than all right. I am happy, Wade, truly happy." "So am I. I feel like the luckiest man alive." They talked into the night, making plans for their future, dreaming aloud about the life they would build together. Wade wanted to save enough money to eventually buy his own ranch, a smaller place where he could raise cattle and horses. Sophia shared her secret hope of one day opening a school, using her love of teaching to help the children of the frontier get an education. "We will make it all happen," Wade promised. "Together, there is nothing we cannot do." Sophia believed him. For the first time since her parents' death, she felt not just hopeful but certain about the future. She had found her place, her purpose, and her person. She had found home. Winter came to Wyoming with a vengeance, bringing snow and bitter cold that kept everyone close to their fires. But inside the little cabin, warmth and love abounded. Wade worked hard at the ranch, often coming home exhausted but always with a smile for his wife and sister-in-law. Sophia continued her sewing work, taking in projects that she could do at home, and Lucy found a position helping the ranch owner's wife with household tasks. The three of them became a true family, eating meals together, playing cards in the evening, reading aloud from books that Wade borrowed from the ranch owner's impressive library. Lucy bloomed under the security and love, losing the haunted look that had lingered after her ordeal with the false accusation. She was 19 now, approaching 20, and beginning to attract the attention of some of the young ranch hands. One evening in late January, as they sat around the fire after dinner, Lucy cleared her throat nervously. "I need to tell you both something." Sophia looked up from her sewing, immediately alert to the tone in her sister's voice. "What is it?" "There is a young man who has been calling on me. His name is Thomas Reid. He works here at the ranch in the stables. He has been very respectful, always asking permission before we speak, never trying to be alone with me. But I think he intends to court me properly, and I wanted you both to know." Wade set down the bridle he had been mending and smiled. "Tom Reed is a good man. I have worked with him a few times. He is honest and hardworking, and the horses trust him, which is always a good sign." "You are not upset?" Lucy asked, looking relieved. "Why would I be upset?" Sophia said, though her heart felt a little pang at the thought of her baby sister growing up and perhaps leaving. "You are old enough to be courted, and if Wade says he is a good man, then I trust his judgment. Could he come to dinner here sometime, so you could meet him properly?" "Of course," Wade said before Sophia could answer. "This is your home too, Lucy. You can invite your friends here anytime." Thomas Reed came to dinner the following Sunday, a tall, lanky young man with sandy hair and a shy smile. He was 22, from Montana originally, and clearly smitten with Lucy. Sophia watched the way he looked at her sister, the careful respect he showed, and she approved. By the end of the evening, both she and Wade had given their blessing for Thomas to court Lucy properly. As winter slowly gave way to spring, both romances flourished. Lucy and Thomas spent time together under Sophia and Wade's watchful but approving eyes, and it became clear that this was developing into something serious. Meanwhile, Sophia discovered she was pregnant, a development that filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. "A baby," Wade breathed when she told him, his hand gently touching her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Sophia asked, searching his face. "Happy does not begin to cover it. I am overjoyed, amazed, grateful, and terrified all at once." She laughed, relieved. "That is exactly how I feel." They told Lucy at dinner that night, and her reaction was everything Sophia could have hoped for. She jumped up from the table and hugged them both, crying happy tears. "I am going to be an aunt. Oh, I cannot wait." The baby was due in early October, which gave them the spring and summer to prepare. Wade built a cradle with his own hands, working on it in the evenings by lamplight. Sophia sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her heart swelling with love for the child she had not even met yet. Lucy helped with everything, already practicing for her role as the doting aunt. In June, Thomas proposed to Lucy, and she joyfully accepted. They planned a late summer wedding, wanting to marry before Sophia was too far along in her pregnancy to help with preparations. Wade gave Lucy away, standing in for the father she had lost, and Sophia cried through the entire ceremony despite her promise to herself that she would stay composed. Thomas and Lucy moved into a small house on the ranch not far from Sophia and Wade's cabin, close enough that the sisters could see each other every day but far enough to give both couples their privacy. It was perfect, keeping the family together while allowing everyone to build their own lives. Summer was beautiful in Wyoming, the prairie covered in wildflowers and the days long and warm. Sophia's belly grew round, and she often sat outside in the evenings, one hand resting on her stomach as she felt the baby kick and move. Wade would come home from work and kneel beside her chair, talking to the baby through her skin, telling their child about the wide world waiting to be explored. Lucy visited almost every day, often bringing food or helping with chores as Sophia grew heavier and more tired. Thomas proved to be a good husband, treating Lucy with the same gentle respect he had shown during their courtship. Sophia was grateful that her sister had found such happiness. In early October, right on schedule, Sophia went into labor. It was a long, difficult process, and there were moments when she wondered if she had the strength to continue. But Wade never left her side, holding her hand, encouraging her, refusing to be sent away despite the doctor's suggestion that he wait outside. Lucy was there too, bringing cool cloths for Sophia's forehead and holding her other hand. Finally, after hours of struggle, Sophia heard the most beautiful sound in the world, her baby's first cry. The doctor lifted the infant, announcing, "It is a boy, a healthy baby boy." Wade was crying openly as the doctor placed their son in Sophia's arms. She looked down at the tiny face, the dark hair plastered to his little head, the small fists waving, and felt her heart expand to accommodate a love so fierce it took her breath away. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." "He is perfect," Wade said, his voice choked with emotion. "You are perfect. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you for this gift." They named him William Henry Crawford, William after Wade's father and Henry after Sophia's. He was a good baby, healthy and strong, with his father's gray-blue eyes and his mother's determination. Sophia fell completely in love with motherhood, despite the exhaustion and the constant demands. Wade was a devoted father, helping with everything despite working long days at the ranch. Lucy was an adoring aunt, visiting constantly and volunteering to watch William whenever Sophia needed rest. Even Mrs. Hartley closed the dress shop for a week to come help with the new baby, bringing food and advice and refusing to accept any payment. The first year of William's life passed in a blur of sleepless nights and precious moments. Sophia marveled at every milestone, the first smile, the first laugh, the first time he rolled over and later sat up on his own. Wade was equally amazed, often just sitting and staring at his son as if he could not quite believe he was real. When William was about 14 months old, Lucy announced that she was expecting as well. The two sisters were overjoyed to be going through motherhood together, comparing symptoms and sharing advice. Lucy's baby, a girl they named Rosemary, was born in the summer of 1880, and the cousins became inseparable as they grew. Time passed, as it always does, marked by the seasons and the growth of children. Wade continued working at the Double C Ranch, saving every penny he could toward his dream of owning his own place. Sophia took in sewing work when she could, adding her earnings to their savings. Lucy and Thomas also worked hard, building their own future. In the spring of 1882, Wade came home with news that changed everything. Mr. Caldwell is selling off a portion of the ranch, 500 acres with water rights and good grazing land. He is offering it to me first, at a fair price. With what we have saved, we can afford it if we take out a small loan. Sophia's heart raced. Your own ranch, that is what you have always wanted. It is what we have always wanted, but it will be hard, Sophia. We will have to build everything from scratch, the cabin, the barn, the fences. It will take years to establish a good herd. So we will work hard for years. We have done it before. They bought the land, signing the papers in town with Lucy and Thomas as witnesses. It felt momentous, like they were claiming their place in the world permanently. The land was beautiful, with a creek running through it and plenty of grass for cattle. Wade and Thomas began building a house, working evenings and weekends, and by late summer they had completed a simple but sturdy 4-room structure. They moved onto their own land in September 1882. 4 years almost to the day after that morning when Wade had walked into the sheriff's office and changed both their lives forever. Sophia stood on the porch of their new home, holding William on her hip while their second son, James, just 6 months old, slept in his cradle inside. She looked out over their land, their future, and felt a sense of peace and accomplishment that transcended words. Wade came up behind her and wrapped his arms around them both. What are you thinking about? About how far we have come. About that day in the jail when you spoke up for Lucy. If you had not done that, none of this would exist. I think we would have found each other somehow. Some things are just meant to be. Sophia leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body. I love you, Wade Crawford. I love the life we have built and the family we have created. I love that every day with you is better than the one before. I love you too, Sophia. More than I have words to express. You and our boys, Lucy and Thomas and Rose, this land, this life, it is everything I ever wanted and more than I ever dreamed possible. William squirmed to be put down, and Sophia lowered him to the porch where he immediately toddled off to investigate a bug. They watched him together, their miracle, their future. Life was not always easy on the frontier. There were harsh winters and dry summers, sick cattle and broken equipment, days when money was tight and worries kept them up at night. But through it all they had each other, and that made everything possible. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. Their ranch, which they called the Circle W after both their family names, slowly prospered. Wade proved to be as good at running his own operation as he had been at working for others. They added to their herd each year, built a proper barn and fences, and even hired on a couple of hands to help with the work. Sophia gave birth to 2 more children, another boy named Joseph and finally a daughter, Emma, born in 1885. Lucy and Thomas had 3 more children after Rose, 2 boys and another girl. The cousins grew up together, running wild across the prairie in summer and huddling by the fire in winter, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Green River grew and changed around them. The railroad came through in 1883, bringing more people and more commerce. The town added a proper school, and Sophia finally got to fulfill her dream of teaching, though in a different form than she had imagined. She started teaching the ranch children, including her own and Lucy's, in her living room each morning before the day's other work began. It was not a formal school, but it was education, and she loved every moment of it. Wade's parents came to visit in 1886, making the long journey from Colorado to meet their grandchildren and see the ranch their youngest son had built. They stayed for a month, and Sophia grew to love them almost as much as Wade did. They were warm, kind people who accepted her and Lucy completely into the family, never once making them feel like outsiders. Mrs. Hartley passed away peacefully in her sleep in 1887, and Sophia mourned the loss of the woman who had been so kind to her when she first came to Green River. The dress shop closed, and Sophia realized with surprise that she no longer needed it. Her life was full with the ranch, her children, and her teaching. Mrs. Patterson, surprisingly, became something of a friend over the years. The older woman never quite lost her proud bearing, but she softened, especially after her nephew, who had stolen the brooch, died young from his dissolute lifestyle. She had no children of her own, and she began to dote on the Watson and Crawford children, often inviting them to the boarding house for cookies and stories. When she died in 1890, she left a small bequest to Lucy in her will, a final apology for the wrong she had done so many years before. By 1895, William was 15 years old and already working full-time on the ranch alongside his father. James was 13 and showed promise as a horseman. Joseph was 10 and loved books almost as much as his mother did. Emma was 10 as well, a bright, spirited girl who could outride most of the boys her age. Lucy's children were similarly grown, Rose now a young woman of 14 being courted by a merchant's son from town. Sophia was 40 years old now, her hair showing threads of silver, her hands marked with the work of 2 decades on the frontier. But she had never felt more alive or more content. She stood on that same porch where she had stood so many times before, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Wade came out to join her, moving a little slower now, his hair fully gray but still strong and capable. He wrapped his arm around her waist, and she leaned into him, the gesture as natural as breathing after all these years. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, the same question he had asked 100 times before. "About us. About everything we have been through and everything we have built. About that scared young woman defending her sister in a jail cell, and the cowboy who stood as witness. And then as family," Wade finished, echoing the words that had become something of a motto for them over the years. "And then as family," Sophia agreed. She turned to face him, looking up into the eyes she loved so much. "I would not change a single moment of it, Wade, not the hard times or the struggles. All of it brought us here to this moment, to this life." "Neither would I," he said and kissed her softly. Here is to the next 20 years, my love." "To the next 20 years," she echoed, and meant it with all her heart. The children's laughter drifted out from inside the house, where Lucy was helping Emma and Rose prepare dinner while the boys argued over a game of checkers. It was the sound of family, of home, of a life well lived. Sophia thought about that morning in 1878 when her world had seemed to be falling apart, and marveled at how one act of kindness, one man choosing to do right, had led to all of this. Wade had stood as witness when she needed someone to believe in justice. He had stood as family when she needed someone to belong to. And he had stood as her husband, her partner, and her love for nearly 17 years, building a life with her that was richer and fuller than anything she could have imagined in those dark days after her parents' death. As the sun finally dipped below the mountains and the first stars began to appear, Sophia and Wade went inside together, ready for dinner with their family, ready for another evening of ordinary happiness. This was their legacy, not grand or famous, but real and true and built on love. This was their story, and it was far from over. The years that followed continued to bring both joys and sorrows, as life always does. In 1897, William married a young woman from town named Sarah, and they gave Sophia and Wade their first grandchild, a boy named after Wade. Sophia held her grandson and felt time move in a strange circle, remembering when she had held William like this, so small and perfect and full of promise. James left home in 1898 to attend school in Denver, wanting to become a veterinarian. It broke Sophia's heart a little to see him go, but she was proud of his ambition and his desire to learn. Wade helped pay for his education, believing firmly in giving his children opportunities he had not had. Joseph surprised everyone by declaring his intention to become a teacher. He moved to Laramie to attend the new normal school there, and Sophia cried happy tears when he told her that she had inspired him with her love of education. Emma remained at home, helping with the ranch and declaring that she had no intention of ever leaving Wyoming. Lucy and Thomas's children followed similar paths, some staying near home and others venturing out to make their own way. Rose married her merchant son and moved to Cheyenne, writing long letters home about city life that made Lucy laugh and cry in equal measure. In 1900, Sophia and Wade celebrated their 22nd wedding anniversary with a party that brought together everyone they loved. The house was full of children and grandchildren, friends and neighbors, all come to celebrate two people who had found each other against the odds and built something beautiful together. Sophia looked around at the crowded rooms, at the faces of people she loved, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Lucy caught her eye from across the room and smiled, and Sophia remembered that day in the jail cell, when everything had seemed so hopeless. Her sister had survived, thrived even, building a good life with Thomas. Neither of them could have imagined this future on that terrible morning in 1878. Wade raised a glass and called for quiet. "I want to make a toast," he said, his voice still strong despite the years. "To my wife, Sophia, who is the bravest, strongest, most loving person I have ever known. 22 years ago, I walked into a sheriff's office and my life changed forever. I stood as witness for the truth, and in return I gained not just a wife, but a whole family. I gained purpose and love and a reason to be better than I might have been otherwise. So here is to Sophia, to Lucy and Thomas, to our children and grandchildren, and to all of you who have shared this journey with us. Thank you for making our lives so rich. To Sophia and Wade." Everyone chorused, raising their glasses. Sophia felt tears on her cheeks but made no move to wipe them away. These were happy tears, earned through years of hard work and dedication, through choosing love even when it was difficult, through standing by the people who mattered most. The party went on late into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. Sophia danced with Wade, moving slowly together as they had learned to do over the years, fitting together perfectly. She danced with her sons and son-in-law, with Thomas, and even with Sheriff Denton, who had become a friend despite their rocky beginning. As the guests finally began to leave and the house grew quiet, Sophia and Wade stood on the porch one last time, watching the moon rise over their land. It was a sight they had seen countless times, but it never got old. "You think we will have 22 more years?" Sophia asked softly. Wade pulled her closer. "I plan to be around as long as you will have me. But even if we only have one more day, one more hour, I will count myself the luckiest man alive." "No more talk of endings," Sophia said firmly. "We have too much living left to do." And they did. They watched more grandchildren be born, helped their sons and daughter through challenges and celebrations, worked their land through good years and bad. They grew old together, their bodies wearing out but their love remaining strong. When Joseph opened his own school in Green River in 1905, Sophia attended the opening ceremony with immense pride. Her son was carrying on her dream in ways she never could have, teaching not just ranch children but all the children of the town. Wade stood beside her, his hand in hers, both of them beaming. Emma married a rancher's son in 1906, and they took over management of the Circle W as Wade and Sophia gradually stepped back from the daily operations. It was hard to let go at first, but also freeing. Sophia had more time for her grandchildren, for her reading, for simple pleasures like sitting in the sun and enjoying the beauty of the world around her. In 1910, on their 32nd anniversary, Wade and Sophia made the journey to Colorado to visit Wade's family. His parents were both still alive, in their 80s now, but still sharp as ever. They spent a wonderful month there, reconnecting with Wade's brothers and meeting nieces and nephews Sophia had never seen. "Your mother and I are so proud of you," Wade's father said one evening as they sat on the porch of the Colorado ranch. "You went out and made your own way, built something from nothing. That takes courage and determination." "I had good teachers," Wade replied, looking at his father with affection, "and I had an even better partner." He reached over and took Sophia's hand. "That you did," Wade's mother agreed. "Sophia, you have been such a blessing to our family. Thank you for loving our son and giving us such beautiful grandchildren." Sophia felt her throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you for raising such a good man. He saved my life in more ways than I can count." The journey back to Wyoming was long but pleasant, giving Sophia and Wade time to talk and remember and dream about the years still ahead. They were 62 and 65 now, not old by the standards of the new century, but certainly not young. They had earned every one of their years, though, and wore them proudly. Lucy and Thomas celebrated their own 32nd anniversary the same year, and the two couples had a joint party that was even bigger than the one 10 years earlier. Sophia looked at her sister, now a grandmother herself, gray-haired but still beautiful, and marveled at the journey they had taken together. "We made it," Lucy said, echoing Sophia's thoughts. "We survived and thrived. Mama and Papa would be so proud." "They would," Sophia agreed. "And they would love Wade and Thomas, love their grandchildren and great-grandchildren." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Wade had not spoken up that day?" Sophia shuddered. "Sometimes, but not often. It is too terrible to contemplate. You might have been convicted, sent away. We might have been separated. I might never have met Wade." "One moment," Lucy said softly. "One choice by one good man, and everything changed." "That is the power of choosing right," Sophia replied. We never know how our actions might ripple out and change the world. The years continued their steady march forward. William gave them more grandchildren. James became a successful veterinarian and married a woman from Denver. Joseph's school flourished. Emma and her husband expanded the Circle W, buying adjoining land and increasing the herd. Lucy and Thomas's children gave them more grandchildren as well, and the extended family remained close despite being spread across Wyoming and Colorado. In 1918, the world was at war, and Sophia and Wade worried for their grandsons of fighting age. Two of them enlisted and went overseas, returning safely when the war ended a year later. The relief Sophia felt when she knew they were safe was overwhelming, and she thanked God for sparing them. The 1920s brought prosperity to the ranch and the whole region. Automobiles became common, though Sophia never fully trusted them, preferring horses. The telephone came to Green River, and then radio, bringing the wider world into their home in ways that both fascinated and sometimes disturbed her. Through it all, Wade remained her constant, her anchor, her love. They had their disagreements over the years, what couple did not, but they always worked through them with patience and respect. They had learned early on that choosing each other, every single day, was the key to a lasting marriage. On their 50th wedding anniversary in 1928, their children and grandchildren threw them a party that was talked about in Green River for years afterward. Sophia wore a new dress that Emma had made for her, and Wade wore his best suit. They cut a cake together, their weathered hands joined on the knife, and Sophia thought about that first kiss in the restaurant so many decades ago. 50 years, Wade said in his speech that evening, his voice not as strong as it once was but still clear. 50 years with the love of my life. 50 years of building a family and a legacy. When I walked into that sheriff's office in 1878, I had no idea I was about to meet my destiny. Sophia Watson was defending her sister with such fierce determination that I could not help but admire her. I stood as witness to the truth, and then I stood as family, and I have never regretted a single moment of it. Sophia wiped her eyes as everyone applauded. When it was her turn to speak, she looked around at all the faces watching her, 3 generations of their family and friends. I am just a woman who wanted to protect her sister, she said. But Wade saw more in me than I saw in myself. He saw strength and courage and something worth loving. He gave me not just his name but his whole heart. He gave me children and grandchildren, a home and a purpose. He stood beside me through every joy and every sorrow, never wavering, never failing. I could not have asked for a better partner in this life. I love you, Wade Crawford, as much today as I did the day we married, maybe even more. They kissed to cheers and applause, and Sophia felt young again, felt like that girl in the blue dress going to dinner with a handsome cowboy. The years had changed their bodies but not their hearts. Lucy, now 70 years old and still going strong, raised her glass. To my sister and my brother, who showed me what true love looks like, who took me in and made me part of their family from the very beginning, who proved that kindness and courage can change the world. I love you both. The party lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and countless stories. Sophia danced with Wade, with her sons and grandsons, with Thomas, and even with some of her great-grandsons. She felt surrounded by love, wrapped in the evidence of a life well lived. The following years were quieter. Wade's health began to fail slowly, his body worn out from a lifetime of hard physical labor. Sophia nursed him tenderly, never complaining, grateful for every additional day they had together. He could no longer work the ranch, but he could sit on the porch and watch the world go by, and Sophia sat with him, holding his hand, talking about everything and nothing. Lucy and Thomas remained close, living in town now but visiting often. Lucy's health was better than Wade's, but she too was slowing down, content to spend her days with her grandchildren and her beloved sister. In the spring of 1932, Wade caught a cold that developed into pneumonia. The doctor came, did what he could, but they all knew the truth. Wade was 79 years old, and he was tired. Sophia stayed by his bedside day and night, leaving only when their children forced her to rest. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the room in golden light, Wade opened his eyes and looked at Sophia with perfect clarity. "I love you," he whispered. "Always have, always will." "I love you too," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "You are my heart, Wade Crawford." "I will wait for you," he said, his voice fading. "On the other side I will be waiting." "Do not wait too long," she tried to joke, but her voice broke. He smiled, that same smile that had captured her heart 54 years earlier. "Never too long. Just until you are ready." He closed his eyes then and slipped away peacefully, surrounded by his family, his hand in Sophia's. She held him until the doctor confirmed what she already knew, that the great love of her life was gone. The funeral was the biggest Green River had ever seen. People came from all over Wyoming and Colorado to pay their respects to Wade Crawford, a man who had lived with integrity and kindness, who had built a legacy not just in land and cattle but in the lives he had touched and the example he had set. Sophia bore it with as much grace as she could muster, accepting condolences and sharing stories. Lucy stayed by her side every moment, the sisters clinging to each other as they had done so many times over the decades. They had started this journey together, and they would finish it together. The months after Wade's death were the hardest of Sophia's life. She felt his absence like a physical pain, a constant ache in her chest. She moved through her days mechanically, caring for herself only because her children insisted. But slowly, very slowly, the sharpest edges of grief began to dull. She found comfort in her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, in watching them grow and learn and become their own people. She found purpose in telling stories about Wade, keeping his memory alive for the youngest ones who would not remember him. She found peace in knowing that they had loved each other well, that they had not wasted a single moment of the time they had been given. Lucy and Thomas were her constant companions, and Sophia was grateful beyond measure for her sister's presence. Thomas's health was failing now too, and the sisters often sat together while their husbands' empty chairs seemed to watch them. They talked about old times, about their parents and their youth in Kansas, about that terrible day in the jail and the miracle of Wade Crawford walking through the door. Thomas passed away in 1934, leaving Lucy a widow as well. The sisters moved in together, back into the house on the Circle W that Sophia could not bear to leave. Emma and her husband lived in the main house now, running the ranch, but they had fixed up the original cabin for Sophia and Lucy. It was perfect, bringing them full circle to where their Wyoming adventure had truly begun. They lived together there for 3 more years, the Watson sisters reunited in their old age. They gardened and sewed and entertained an endless stream of visitors. They attended church every Sunday and town events when they felt up to it. They watched the world change around them, with airplanes in the sky and movie houses in town, marveling at how different it all was from their youth. Sophia died peacefully in her sleep in 1937 at the age of 79, the same age Wade had been. Lucy found her in the morning, lying peacefully in her bed with a slight smile on her face, as if she had seen something wonderful. Lucy wept, but they were not entirely tears of sorrow. Her sister was with Wade now, reunited with the love of her life. How could that be anything but a blessing, Sophia was buried next to Wade in the Green River Cemetery, under a cottonwood tree that was just beginning to leaf out with spring growth. Their shared headstone read, Wade Crawford, 1853–1932, and Sophia Watson Crawford, 1855–1937. He stood as witness, then as family, then as love, together forever. Lucy lived another 5 years, dying in 1942 at the age of 83. She was buried near her sister and brother-in-law, with Thomas on her other side. The four of them, the family that had formed in such unlikely circumstances, were together even in death. Their descendants continued to thrive. The Circle W remained in the family, passed down through generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story, while honoring the foundation that Wade and Sophia had built. The name Crawford became synonymous with integrity and hard work in Wyoming, and people would often say, "They are Crawford kin," as the highest compliment. Joseph's school eventually became part of the public school system, but it bore a plaque honoring Sophia Crawford, the teacher who had inspired it. William's descendants continued ranching. James's son became a veterinarian like his father. Emma's children spread across Wyoming, all of them carrying forward the values their grandparents had instilled. And in quiet moments, when the family gathered for holidays or anniversaries, someone would always tell the story of how it all began. They would tell about a young woman defending her sister in a jail cell, about a cowboy who chose to speak the truth even though it would have been easier to stay silent, about how one moment of courage and kindness had changed everything. They would tell about love that lasted 54 years and beyond, about partnership and respect and choosing each other every single day. They would tell about standing as witness, standing as family, standing as proof that goodness and love could triumph over hardship and injustice. And in the telling, Wade and Sophia Crawford lived on, their legacy not just in the land or the name but in the example they had set, the love they had shared, and the family they had created. It was a story worth remembering, worth honoring, worth passing down through the generations. Because in the end, that was what mattered most. Not wealth or fame or glory, but love. The love between a man and a woman who chose each other. The love between sisters who refused to be separated. The love of family, chosen and created, that endured through all the challenges life could throw at it. Wade Crawford had stood as witness when a desperate woman needed someone to believe in justice. He had stood as family when 2 orphaned sisters needed a place to belong. And he had stood as love, constant and true, for the rest of his days. That was his legacy. That was their story. And it was a story that ended not with sorrow but with celebration, not with loss but with love eternal, not with an ending but with a promise that what they had built would continue long after they were gone. The Watson sisters had come to Wyoming seeking opportunity and found so much more. They found home. They found family. They found love. And in finding it, they created something beautiful that would echo through time, touching lives not yet born, inspiring hearts not yet broken, offering hope to anyone who heard their story and believed that goodness still existed in the world. It was a legacy of love, pure and simple. And that was the very best legacy anyone could leave behind.